Mario Kart World has been out for about a month and a half at this point, and I feel like I've put enough time into the game to give my honest thoughts and opinions on which tracks I absolutely love and the ones I completely despise, then put them on a tier list, starting off with Bowser's Castle. First, you make your way down these 2 trick ramps into a branching path, a pretty narrow space with a few somewhat tight turns. Then you're thrown into these sharp 90-degree turns, making your way through the lava bubbles, pretty easy to avoid. Then we have our first glider of the map, which looks absolutely amazing. Transition from lava to this thunderstorm cloud area, and after that we have the speed section, which honestly I think more maps should have. And we trick into Bowser's mouth, a couple tricks here, still on the speed section with a long turn right here, and our second glider right here. Another branching path with some meteors falling out the sky, which are pretty easy to avoid. And then one final trick to finish off the lap. Front running this track can be very rewarding if you know the shortcuts and techniques. Like this one, at the beginning of the lap, up the chain, and before you hit the rail, let go of the A button. You don't want too much speed on this part. Hit the middle rail, trick to the right one, then immediately trick left. And there's a hidden rail which I don't see many people use, which is understandable. It's not that practical at all, but it's there. Or you can take the shortcut everybody takes. Down into the branching paths, go right, charge up to the wall, onto the rail. Then at the curve, take a right trick, hang on the wall for a bit, left trick. You'll hit this wall, trick off the arrow, hold left, and just keep spamming left trick. Or you could just get lucky and pull a feather. And there's also the shortcut after the glider. Jump off this dirt path, land on the wall, and then shoot yourself up and spam right trick. This track rewards skill, and because of that, it's going in S tier. Airship Fortress, a classic, one of my favorites back in the DS, with some pretty big upgrades. First, we start off on this long straightaway with the ship blasting bullets. Just go ahead and dodge those. Then we enter the ship, avoid some Monty moles, which you could easily do by charging up to the rail right there. Then we enter the ship, greeted with a U-turn with a pretty small straightaway. Dodge the little fire sticks there, easily done with the rails, which also give you a nice speed boost. Followed by a sharp left turn into the cannon, which launches you into the spiral section. You can take a long drift here, get yourself a rainbow mini turbo, make your way around the dirt, and right back to the finish line. Now, ideally, playing this track online, you want to start on the left side. That way you have a better chance to get on the rail at the beginning and get yourself a nice little speed boost off the tricks, and then make a right trick onto the right side. And then at the right moment, trick off to avoid some airtime going up the chain. And then just do a charge trick back onto the red rail. Another great front-running track for skilled players, and that's why it's going in S tier. Bones Burnout. I initially hated this track, but after learning some techniques, it's grown a whole lot on me. There's a left turn here, but you can, charge up on there to not do that left turn. It's not too much faster, but it's cool to do. Then you have these branching paths. Usually the bottom path isn't the way I go. The top path is better in my opinion, mainly because after this glider section here, you can just trick off this part and hit the rail. It's really easy to do. And then make your way through these different paths. You can take the one I just took to wall ride there and hit the rail, and then use the feather to do that, which I was not aware you could do. I did that out of instinct. We have the top path here, which takes you to the bottom path, which again, I mean, there's not a whole lot going on down here. On the top one, you could ride rails. Then the glider just brings you down here. Maybe it's safer, I'm not quite too sure, but if you want to go back up, you can take the rails right here and get back up to the top route. I wouldn't say it's one of my favorites. People can easily catch up with the lava shortcut towards the end. So I'll put this one in A tier. Toad's Factory, pretty faithful to the original. Start off with a straight line with a turn into the item factory. The smashers turn the blocks into question blocks, which I always thought was a nice touch. You can either go for those, or you could take a faster line through the middle. A few added rails to take some tighter turns. And outside the factory, we have the 2 moving platforms and the alternating conveyors, but instead of the boxes, there's coins. Back into the factory, there's a wide turn with another wide turn right after, this time come with alternating conveyors, then a little bit sharper of a turn here, putting us back outside the factory with more options on where to land, either on the main path or a tighter line on the beams up top, which sends you to the boost panels that send you towards the final trick of the lap. There is the pop path at the beginning of the lap, but that one isn't really all that practical to go to. A wider line for item boxes, which you can get on the bottom path. And there's also the upper path after the alternating conveyors, which also isn't ideal, but could be useful to avoid the chaos. But still, a great track, and that's why it's gonna go in A tier. Next up is Acorn Heights. This one reminds me a lot of Wild Woods from Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. A pretty wide left turn to start things off. You can either go even wider for boost panels and coins, or take the tighter line to try and get a breakaway. Onto the bridge, we have 3 different paths: the left rail, the right rail, and the main middle path, that all bring you to the glider. That glides you to what I think is the most gorgeous part of this track, and that is this platforming section with tons of different paths, with a few rails and another gliding section. It's a lot better to take the tighter lines of this section where the rails are, and try to take the upcoming shortcut Shroomless, which I fail here miserably, but we don't talk about that. Otherwise, without a mushroom, you'd have to go all the way around. And for the final part of the track, several different paths, or you can cut those paths entirely and take these triple vine rails for a better chance at front running. Going back to the platforming section, if you go all the way right, there is a glider, which isn't too fast, but it's there if you want to take it. Honestly, this one doesn't excite me too much, but it's not a bad track, so I'll put this one in A tier. Mario Circuit across previous games haven't really been something to be hyped for. They're always just flat, basic tracks with a couple turns. This version combines 3 of them from previous games into one. Honestly, I think even with these 3 combined, it's still short. There's not a whole lot of rail riding tech you can do. You can jump off a few pipes, take a few tight turns. That's about as much as this track allows you to do. There's this one cool pull shortcut you can do. I don't even really know if it's considered much of a shortcut. You can use the charge jump to get up on some of the blocky areas. I don't think it's that much faster to do it. Cool to do. You're better off just bagging on this track rather than front running. Just get some mushrooms and cut some of the off-road. A little bit of a letdown of a course. I feel like more could have been done to it, and that's why I'm putting it in C tier. Our first C tier. Great Question Block Ruins. This one is like the mushroom gorge of Mario Kart World. We start off with a turn here into a set of item boxes, and then a very wide turn, and then we drop down to the floating island, which you can charge jump your way to the rail to take a tight line, or just go all the way around, play it safe. And then another island with a little bit of a tight turn. Then this is the part of the track where things start to open up a whole lot. You have about 4 paths to choose from. You have the top left, and then under that you have the chain. You have the main road, and then the chain on the right. Just trick off a few bounce clouds, hit a few tricks and boost panels on this turn area, and instead of taking the normal path towards the right, you can just gracefully fall off the track here, let the ring bounce you back up, trick onto the question block, trick back onto the ring, and you're back on the track. You avoid so much airtime doing this, and it's so worth it to do. Finally, a U-turn into a glider section, which is kind of a lackluster ending in my opinion. You're just flying for a few seconds, going straight. And there's just a couple mushroom shortcuts here. First, at the beginning of the track, cut off this huge part of the grass, latch onto the rail, which lines you up perfectly for the next rail. There's these boxes covering up a ramp that has a bounce cloud, which not really worth doing. Gives you a lot of airtime. Oh yeah, and then there's this part that I've seen literally no one ever go for. I mean, hey, it's got an item set, so another track that, if done correctly, rewards front running and skill. But yeah, this goes in S tier, obviously. Rainbow Road, the holy grail of Mario Kart. While it looks beautiful, the track layout, not so much. Lap 1 is kind of similar to Mario Circuit, a lot of wide turns. You have a few trick ramps here and there, then a split path here. Lap 2 starts you off in the air, brings you down to the water section. Driving on water is butt in this game, but because you have a boost throughout the whole track, it kind of makes up for it. Then after that, we have another split path. Split paths are very common on this track. And then there's lap 3, the best lap of the track. The first half isn't a speed section, which is strange, but the second half has some tight turns, which are kind of tricky to maneuver through, especially with the weird camera camera angle, avoiding some thwomps here and there and a couple tricks. And the first half of lap 4 begins with another split path. It's got a few trick ramps and a long boost panel, nothing too crazy. And the second half of lap 4 only has just one shortcut you need a mushroom for, with some more wide turns, then one final stretch into the finish line. The speed sections are the only thing from keeping me from ranking this lower, so it gets a fair B tier. Another returning classic, Peach Beach. This time around, it's been given the 3-lap section treatment. So the first lap starts off as per usual. Straight line, good charge jump on these light poles that I failed at here. Just a wide turn on a lot wider of a track too. Into the first Cataquack section. All the paths are still there. Left side is nowhere near as worth going as previous games. You can either go through the slow water and get some points from the Shy Guys, or avoid the Cataquacks, which is a lot easier to avoid. Into the second Cataquack section. Well, I guess what was considered the second Cataquack section. They are no longer to be seen here for whatever reason. And then the final turn back into the finish line. But instead of doing this course again, greeted with a different path. Drive up to, I have no idea what we're driving up to actually, but we're going somewhere. Who knows? Yet again, we have multiple paths. You can go up left, you can go towards the right, or you can go towards the middle. A couple rails on the left, couple rails on the right, another wide U-turn, or you can skip that by taking the shortcut here, take a tighter U-turn, and a few more extra tricks. Into a glider section for lap 3. Now this is the part where it starts going down a couple tiers. And that, my friends, is because of the water sections. A lot of it is just going straight. Now you could take the speed panel on the right or cut a little bit of the track and the water by taking the shortcut here. The final U-turn of the track, a lot of U-turns here. This final section here, again, it's just going straight, and we're led back to second half of lap 1 into the finish line. I don't really see the need to make it a sectioned course, although I do enjoy the second lap. Lap 3 is just, I just hate it. I don't look forward to playing this track when it's picked. I thought about giving it a C tier, but I thought it was too harsh, so I'll give it a B tier. Crown City. This one also has the 3-lap section treatment. First lap is the most mundane of the 3. It's just straight lines for the most part. You can do a couple tricks off of the rails and the trees and whatnot, just for style points. And into the alleyway. Track starts to get a little more interesting here. It's got some tight turns. It's a pretty narrow space. It keeps you alert all the time. You go up the stairs. You can either go on the rail in the middle or trick off the stairs that bring you into this half pipe section, which not worth going for. I mean, unless you're desperate for coins. We're brought back into the city, which is another straight line, but it's got some branching paths. Very wide too. You could take some rails in the middle. You could take the rails up top. Nothing's faster than the other. They're all about the same. Now lap 2 is where things get a little more interesting, thankfully. After this wide turn, we're brought into the construction/platforming area, where you could chain some tricks with some rail hops, followed by more tricks into a pretty nice turn that brings you to another trick with another turn into what I think is the monument, or I don't know what you'd call this, but it's cool to jump through. I don't know. And down we go. A lot of airtime on this part. Another U-turn, and then a glider back into the city for the final time. This is the same part from the end of lap 1. And this time we go left towards a different section of the track. 4 basic turns. Got one here and then another one here with a straightaway, which allows you to get a nice charge jump through this rail. Break off left to get a nice shortcut, shroomless shortcut, cut off a pretty wide turn yet again to the beginning of lap 1 to the finish line. Laps 2 and 3 carry a lot, and because of that, I will be placing this in B tier. Oh, Desert Hills, how you shouldn't have been brought back. Very wide track with okay turns. We got rid of the little pyramid that was on the left. The Fire Snake and Angry Sun are nowhere to be seen. And on the hilly section, which is alright, I guess it's a little better than the previous versions. But where are my Pokies? I want my Pokies back. And the last section doesn't even have the hills that it used to have. Like, what? Why? It was fun to zigzag in between them. But now I just take this rail up here, and there's the end. It's a pretty short track. There's also this added section here where you can glide on top or do a trick on the bottom, which doesn't really save you any time. Don't bother front running this. Yeah, no surprise, F tier. DK Pass is pretty faithful to the original for the most part, boosting our way through the tunnel with a few twisting curves up the slope, but you could skip a good portion of these turns by doing a little bit of fancy movement, trick up the wall, into the snow, which doesn't really make you all that much slower. Skip another turn by going off the ledge here, trick off the land back onto the track, and now we make our way down the slope by using the main path or doing this wall ride tree shortcut to avoid some more turns, and continue making the way downwards into the final turn, which are missing the snowman obstacles, so there's not really much to dodge or do around this final turn, and into the finish line. Instead of going up the wall at the beginning, you could do this pole shortcut, very easy to do, and another shortcut which I think is kind of awkward to set yourself up for. Charge up to the pole, ride the wall up to the hidden rail. I've always liked the original DK Pass. I'm glad it came back with some extra additions. It's always fun maneuvering through the twists and turns. I'll slap this one in A tier. Dino Jungle. Usually I like to go for triple mushrooms at the start here first for upcoming shortcuts. But starting things off, we make our way around the corner into this wider section here. There's a dinosaur here, but it's not the same dinosaur as the original. That dinosaur would appear in lap 2. The small tunnel has been removed, but these branching paths are still here. And instead of heading into a cave like in the original, we're heading into this industrial facility. Some more rail riding options here. Now you can go wide and avoid some of the water spouts, or you can take the shortcut here like always and hit a couple tricks and boosts on the straightaway bridge portion into the final turn with more trick ramps and a few more water spouts into the finish line. Making your way into the facility, there's this wall ride path which isn't faster at all, but it's a good way to get away from the crowd. And instead of taking one of the two paths, there's a dinosaur with a rail on its back. Not sure if it saves a lot of time, but it's cool to know that it's there. Compared to the original, this one is a lot more industrial-like than jungle, but that's not going to stop me from putting this in A tier. Peach Stadium. The starting line area is very wide here. It's got a few rails on the side, which usually aren't worth going for. It's just a straight line here. I feel like some boost panels or trick ramps could have been added here into the first turn. Then we have this straight upwards motion with some wide curves that have boost panels, thankfully. It makes this portion a little more bearable to go through. Trick off onto this floating island with another wide curve. And trick onto this other island with another zigzag. Finally, one last trick onto the rest of the course. Take a pretty sharp U-turn here. Then there's the rest of the track, which is just boring. I feel like the pipe section here could have at least added some boost panels like earlier in the track. And then this final turn is just lackluster. I'm not a big fan of it. I feel like it drags out a little too long. And then there's the finish line. If you stay towards the left on this boost ramp, there's a rail here. And then you could either trick off left or right. They have their own paths. Going towards the right, though, lines you up nicely for this tight rail turn here. Not sure if it's worth going for because of all the air time, or you can use a feather for to just jump up there. And another rail here gives you an item set, and you can skip a lot of the boring section by flying. I don't really have much to say about it. I'll just throw this in B tier. DK Spaceport. I like the idea of this track, but the layout not so much. This is like Excitebike Arena, but more. I mean, you just start off straight. There's a few trick ramps, followed by a split path. You can go up or down. Then we turn and get a view of the rest of the course. You got a few more trick ramps up here, and then one down here. And you can cut this section, avoid some airtime. Another straight line with more trick panels, similar to lap 1. And then we have a U-turn into another straight line with a bunch of bounce pads, helping you to avoid all the barrels. And we're brought back into another U-turn with another straight line. Do some more tricks and avoid some more barrels. Another U-turn with, this time, a rail section, switching things up a little bit. No barrels to be seen here. Another U-turn. The wall riding section, which the devs really want you to go on, but it's not that much faster. So you just go straight, do some tricks. With another U-turn, another straight path with some tricks, and you guessed it, barrels. I guess this part's a little better because, you know, you have Robo DK throwing them right in front of you. And the barrels are a lot larger. But at the end of the day, there's really not a whole lot of skill in this track, and I don't feel like it deserves a really low tier, so I'll put this one in B. Faraway Oasis. I used to have mixed feelings for this track, but that's changed a whole lot lately. You're thrown into this turn, you trick off into the water, jump out of the water, do another trick into another turn upwards, and then a small straight section with some tricks, with a boost panel sending us all the way down. Now you can land on the rail in the middle or the sides and do some insane rail riding rather than, you know, drive the normal track. And then the water section, which is why I hated this track a whole lot, until I discovered you could avoid most of it. Now you could take the upper path towards the left or drive straight through the water like a psychopath, or you could use the airtime from the water to latch onto the rail, then trick off to the upper platform here to avoid the water. It's not too hard to do, just requires some timing. And then we trick off into the final section, which has water, but it's not that bad, and it doesn't last too long. Trick off the ramp into the final U-turn of the track, and then into the finish line. Pulling off all those cuts is so satisfying and rewarding to do when you're front running. I'm throwing this one in S tier. Koopa Troopa Beach, a glorified baby park. Maybe, sort of, kinda, I don't know. It's always gotta be that one track where it's just a circle, oval, square, etc. I hope you enjoyed left turns as much as I do. I don't. There's only like 2 ramps to trick off, and that's about it. There's really nothing much to this track at all. You could take a mushroom shortcut with a charge jump to cut this off. That's about as interesting as this track gets. This one's gonna be our second F tier. Mario Bros. Circuit. This is that beginner Mario Kart course that every game has. Pretty easy, pretty wide track. You start off with a wide curve, drive straight a little bit, going up the bridge slightly upwards with some rails on the side that guide you through the rest of the curve. We continue upwards through this rocky section. This part of the track is similar to the end of Peach's Stadium. It's a really long turn where you kind of just do nothing but drift. But after that, we have 2 different paths. You can go left, continue the track normally, or you could take the right path, which has a few tricks, brings you up to a glider that brings you towards this upper path that has a rail on it, which you could use to chain to the other rail down below on the left, which I fail here. And then back at the beginning of the track, you can use a feather to take a shortcut, hiding behind the tires. You can also do this with a shroom, but you can also do it without any of those and just charge jump up there. And Mario Bros. Circuit, I'll throw that one in a C tier. Guy Bazzar, and man, is this track bizarre. If you're starting on the right side, you could use the boost start to hop off the sand onto the red rail on the right. Otherwise, you drive the track like normal, maneuver through a curve, which bring you into the bazaar that have so many different paths. This one here, charge jump onto the rail, hang onto the rail, and once you get to the end, trick left, immediately trick right, then back left. You hang on this rail, at the end, trick left, and you'll latch onto this rail, followed by a tight U-turn, and then another tight U-turn, short straightaway here. With a trick ramp, you can go forward on the main path, or you could take these rails on the left, grab yourself some extra coins, and a few extra tricks. Head into a glider, into the final section of the course with one last turn, into the finish line, or if you have another lap, you can take this path onto the red rail that I mentioned earlier. Hang on it for a bit, jump off at the right time to land on this rail to get to the top of the bazaar. Saves some good time and keeps you away from the pack. Another path back in the bazaar. You can charge jump on this stand and land on this rail and do some more rail riding up here. If you have a feather, you can hop up on this rail, chill there for a bit, take a tight turn, trick up onto this rail that brings you up towards this right path with a ramp to wall ride on the right wall, back onto the main path. This track just has so many options. Huge upgrade from Mario Kart 7, and to no one's surprise, this is an S tier track. If you've played Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, you'd know how bad Sky High Sundae was. You start off the exact same way, straight into a glider section. There's also a rail path towards the right if you want some extra coins. You land on the ice cream cone with a added rail in the middle, or stairs to trick off of, with more branching paths. Another added rail towards the middle here, which you can use to shave off a little bit of time. We make our way upwards, split path, doesn't matter which one you choose, they're both the exact same. And we slowly make our way downwards into this much wider section with several different paths. Pull off a whole chain of tricks here. And the part of the track that was absolutely horrible in 8 Deluxe, but has now been made up for with the wall ride mechanic. Instead of going wide, jump off the ledge, hang on the wall, do a few tricks for extra speed, and back onto the main track. And we end things off with a short straightaway with a few tricks. On this section up here, there are some rails. I'm not sure if they're useful or not, but they are an option. And finally, one I discovered recently, after this jump, instead of going on the main path, you can actually drop down below for a secret glider section. So I think taking this path down here could be really useful if you play your cards right. Really happy with how the devs upgraded this track. I never thought I'd put it up this high, but it's going in A tier. Starview Peak. This one is like Rosalina's Ice World and Ice Ice Outpost combined together, but with the most boring parts of those tracks. You have a really wide first turn here, followed by another really wide turn. Yeah, you have the rails on the side, but let's be honest, is that going to really help you? Making our way up towards the observatory, there are split sections, boost panels on the top, tighter turns on the bottom. Trick our way downwards towards this small island with a right turn into a glider. And the rest of the course here, a water section. But it's okay, because it's a speed section. Yeah, that still doesn't make up for how bad driving on water is. And it's just going straight. There's no tight corners. There's like one really wide turn. There's a few boost panels, but that's really all there is to this water section. And for the final section, there's a glider with some more speed panels, and to the end of the lap. This track is another Desert Hill situation. Better off bagging. You are going in F tier. Wario Stadium. Even though this track has been significantly shortened compared to the original, it does not mean this track is bad at all. Immediately launch forward to do a chain of tricks into a sharper left turn. Then we go up the ramp to do a trick, and then a second ramp for another trick. A left turn into this awesome portion with dozens of trick ramps. Just one after the next after the next. Really fun to pull off while taking these turns. We take a right turn into this section. Several different paths here, I'll get to that later. We're brought to a tight U-turn and brought up to this large ramp with a bunch of speed panels soaring up into the sky, followed by a sharp right turn with one final wider U-turn and into the finish line. Now, if you want to do some fancy movement, you can go this direction, up to the wall, on the rail, then trick off immediately to land on the ramp, then trick off of it to land on this wall, to get on this rail, and get a few extra tricks, and landing on the next rail right here. With practice, can be done easily, and is so worth doing. On the split path section, towards the left, you have the coin route, if you need some extra coins. Or on the right, you can take a much tighter line, harder to pull off. Again, easily done with practice, and bring yourself back towards the track. Another phenomenal track that makes a lot of use of the new mechanics. I'm bringing you up to S tier. Whistlestop Summit. To go fast on this track, ideally you want to start on the left side so you can take the upper path towards the rails to avoid some wide turns. But once there, you can ride on this rail and hop onto the yellow rail, sit on there for a bit, and then trick off at the right moment to magnetize back onto the train tracks. Continue riding on that for a little while, pull off some extra speed boosts, trick off to shave some more time, followed by some more chains of tricks. And into the uphill section, we have a wide turn here with a sharper U-turn followed right after. Now you can continue driving straight, or you can get on these rails here, get some more speed boosts. Then we have a branching path. Now it doesn't matter which one you go to, all of them are the same. But if you have a feather and take the top path, you can hop off here onto this yellow rail, and at the end, trick right, then use the feather to land on the wall, and trick back left to hit this rail to take another tight turn. And that's the end of the lap. Now, instead of going wide on this section, you can hold a charge jump, cut into the grass for a split second, then left trick, immediately right trick to hit this rock, and a left trick to cut off some of the track. And going back to the feather shortcut from earlier, you can do it without a feather, but it's a lot harder to pull off. Chain these yellow rails here, hang on to this one for a bit, and at the right moment, you want to trick off to land on the wall, immediately trick right onto the sign to land on this hidden rail, back onto the wall and the rail. I didn't pull this one off pretty well, but you see the idea here. One of the hardest tracks to master in my opinion, but again, rewarding if done correctly. Whistlestop Summit is another S tier. Boo Cinema. The idea and visuals for this track are just so brilliant. We start off by making our way into the theater with a little bit of a wide turn. It's not too bad. Shortly after, we're in the showroom with a rail up here. We can shave off a small bit of time, land into a sharp left turn, and prepare ourselves to dive into the film. We're greeted by Princess Peach herself. Take a wide left turn here. Trick off into this straight section, which is animated for some reason, unlike the ones on the wall. But we trick off, make another wide left turn, into a right turn, then a glider section back into the showroom, You can pull off a couple tricks here, or you can ride the rail, which is a little awkward here, to make one final turn into the finish line. The layout of the track itself isn't really too complex. There's not very many shortcuts. There's the wall ride at the end, not too much else. The visuals do carry a whole lot, and because of that, I'll throw it in B tier. Cheap Cheap Falls. I like to compare this one to Cheese Land back in Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, and you'll see why here in a moment. So you're better off just going for 3 mushrooms on the first item set. We have a wider left turn here, followed by a sharper right turn. Then we head straight, making our way towards the bridge, with some rails both on the left and right. Take a left turn off the bridge, head under the waterfall for a wide left turn, and into our favorite section, the water section. You can pull off a few tricks here, and then we get to the main part, which is a little tough to drive around, and that's where the mushrooms come in handy. You can head off-road with a mushroom, traverse through a little bit more of the water, and again, instead of going wide on the water, you can save a whole lot of time with this shortcut here. Head up the stairs onto the finish line. Now there is an alternate path if you want to avoid the water as much as possible, but kind of leads you off on an awkward spot, especially if you don't have a mushroom. Now obviously every time you play this, you're not always going to have mushrooms, but since the whole track isn't filled with water, I'm going to put it in like a high B tier. It's almost up there on A tier, but not quite. Choco Mountain also got a little bit of a rework. There's a little bit more going on compared to the original, and you're not in this dense, dark track all the time, surrounded by all these walls. It's a lot more open. The track layout is mostly the same. Some parts are a little wider and thinner than others. Start off by taking a couple turns, zigzag through here and there. What I think is chocolate on the sides of the map are new additions. We have a speed ramp that brings you to this inside section. Take a left turn here, light right turn with a trick ramp again. We have a pretty sharp left turn that brings us towards this ramp, which you could take to go towards the main path or charge jump onto this wall and onto this platform. You can skip a little bit of the mud and avoid some of the charging chucks throwing footballs at you and a few of the choco balls that fall off from the mountain. You're probably better off just using a feather after that part, but from there we head back up the mountain. The road gets a little thinner here and drop down with a couple final tricks into the finish line. I like how open the track feels now. Still, I don't think it's a track worth bringing back. Again, there's not too many significant shortcuts you can take without feathers or mushrooms. I just don't think very highly of this one. I'm gonna throw it in D tier. Dandelion Depths first starts you off with a right turn onto a bridge that has a rail on both the left and right. Then after that is this downward spiral, which is a little awkward to go through. You kind of have to stop your drift and trick for a boost, and landing back to get a good line is a little weird. Regardless, you could take the top path by riding the wall on the right to get to the top platform, which again I see no one use, or the bottom path has a few wider turns that bring you towards another split path. The top one, which I wouldn't advise going for unless you really want to get away from all the chaos down below on the bottom path, which most people take. It's got a wide right turn into this cave with what I think is the most tolerable water section in the entire game, mainly because you're not really driving on it, you're just using the water physics to trick out the water and combining that with the rocks to trick off of those to just give yourself a speed boost throughout the entire water section. Then after that, we make our way upwards via these speed panels, and at the end we get a U-turn that brings us back towards the finish line. From my experience, front running this track is a hit or miss. I just see this as another track that's just there, it exists. I'll throw this one in B tier. Moo Moo Meadows remains unchanged track layout wise. It begins the same with the straight line into a long turn. Then we get into what was where all the Moo Moos gathered and were a lot more spread out and prominent on the track. But after this hill here, they're all just kind of congregated up in this one area. I mean, the rest of the track is again the same. There's a lot of big turns. The ramp is still here from previous games. And the glider section on the right is slower to get to this time around because I liked using that glider to land on the speed ramp, which is no longer there. Then we have the spotty patches of grass with the Monty moles. You can trick off them, and then you just make your way towards the finish line. While there's no cool rail riding or wall riding stuff here, there is a pretty cool mushroom cut you could use a charge jump for. Release a charge jump here while using a mushroom, and boom, you cut off a whole bunch of the track. And another shortcut here, right before the patches of grass. I think the only reason this track was brought back is because Cow is a playable character. Moo Moo Meadows is gonna go in a D tier. Salty Speedway starts you off in this water section, which is a little weird to maneuver through the first turns, but it's just easier to charge up on the bricks and go back into the water. But moving on, we have what looks like one path, but there are 3 different paths. The main path is just an ordinary big circle. Trick off a few stairs here, then you're brought up to 2 pretty sharp turns following after. Then up this small hill of stairs, pull off another trick with another sharp turn into another water section. Again, there are multiple paths, but on the main path, you traverse through the water. Take a big left turn here into a little bit of a tighter right turn. And this part's the most awkward part. You drive straight on water, nothing really much to do here. Final turn also feels a little bit weird, but if you have a mushroom or feather, you could take the top path and avoid all that and into the finish line. Now going back to this part, instead of taking the main path, you can hold a charge jump, wall ride the waterfall, then trick off to land up here, then trick off the edge, land on a thin wall. Alternatively, if you want to do a safer version of that, charge up on the outer edge of this wall to latch on a rail. Once you see the second rail, trick off and boom. And going back to the second water section, you can hold a charge jump here onto the wall, latch onto the rail for a moment, then trick off left. And you're skipping a whole bunch of the water, especially with the glider section at the end. And if you want to take a safer version of that, trick onto this wall, land on the rail, then trick right to this curved wall, and trick left to land back on this stone path. While Salty Speedway does have a good bit of water, the paths you can take to avoid it and just the layout of the track itself makes up for it. And I actually want to put this in S tier. Slowly, I've been gaining more of a liking to Wario Shipyard. As much as I've been saying I hate driving on water, you can skip a good portion of it. But when you do drive in the water on this track, you're driving on rapid waters, which allow you to get more tricks in. After the first turn, you can charge jump right on the boost panel and hit the tree to cut off a huge section, and it doesn't even count you out of bounds. And taking this turn here isn't really all that hard. All you need to do is wiggle your stick, pause, back and forth quickly, and use the water rapids to get some more tricks in. You can either stay on the water or take the outer stone path, and it also lines you up pretty nicely for the next turn. Getting out of the water and into the ship, we head out for a U-turn with a trick ramp for a wall ride that has a speed boost panel up top, or you can take the normal path and try to avoid some more water by landing on the rope, which I failed at, closing in at the end of the course, making one final turn for the ramp, and to the finish line. There is another cool shroomless shortcut. Hop on this rail, and at the right time, trick off left to bounce off the palm tree. This saves you from driving on water, and is not too hard to pull off. For a water-based track, this one I look forward to racing on when it gets picked. It rewards skill with knowing how to drive on these kind of waters and taking all the shortcuts. And for the final track of the tier list, I'll put Wario Shipyard in A tier. And with that, this is my complete tier list for every track in Mario Kart World. Let me know what y'all think. Do you agree? Do you disagree? What would you change? It's still pretty early into the game, so this list could possibly change in the future, but that's all I have for you today. Thanks for watching. Adios and greetings.